an introduction to relationship blueprints, where do they come from and why do they matter. So let's first of all define what we mean by a relationship blueprint. When I talk about blueprints, I'm talking about your database in your subconscious mind of all the information about how to show up and behave in all of your relationships. And as you can imagine, there's quite a lot of information in there. So where do they come from? Well, let's start off by understanding that nature counts survival as a win. So if you've survived your childhood, then whatever happened in your childhood is counted as a win by nature, which means that it is more likely that if you recreate what you experienced as a child in your adult life, your children are also more likely to survive. What nature doesn't care about is whether you had a nice childhood or not. So it doesn't care about whether you enjoyed your childhood, because it's only interested in whether you survived it, and survived it with enough tools to find a mate of your own and feed yourself and your family and raise children. That's pretty much all nature cares about. So your blueprint between the ages of 0 and 7 is what we call our imprinting stage. Okay. And in this stage, we're in a sort of virtual state of hypnosis. That's the most efficient way for us to learn everything that we need to learn. Because remember, when you're little, you're not old enough to really understand what's going on. So nobody could sit there and teach and explain it to you. So the best way to ensure that by the age of 7, you have everything that you need to be able to grow up and raise your own family is by downloading everything that happens around you and to you into your subconscious. A little bit like we call them parenting tapes, and they become your scripts for relationships. So we're downloading all of this into our subconscious mind, into these kind of parts of ourselves, complete with scripts of how to show up in different relationships with those different types of people that we experienced as a child. When we grow up, we end up resonating with people who feel familiar, though we don't always see it at first. But that's nature's way of saying, oh, that's activated part of our blueprint. So that's probably going to make a great partner for you because there's something about that person that's familiar. And if that's true, then it's likely that they will raise children in the way that you've experienced, which is a win. And so it's very normal for both partners to feel similar about each other and to light up each other's blueprints. And that's what we often refer to as like the honeymoon stage, is where you get those really exciting feelings. If you go on a date and somebody says, I feel a spark, that's what's happening, is your blueprints lighting up going, I think we should imprint on this person because something about them, my body is telling me, will be good, good for survival, because it's familiar. And in fact, it's often one of the first red flags, because people who with secure attachments don't tend to get that spark, that excited, that drama, because they've had very calm and sort of warm relationships and fulfilling ones, not necessarily exciting and dramatic ones. So that obsession that we get, or the excitement that we get and the spark that we talk about, is usually this blueprint being activated. Now, if you've had a fantastic childhood, then, in terms of relationships, then the spark might not be a problem. But if you know that you have troublesome prints from the past, then that the more excited you are about the person, the chances are the more trauma is wrapped up in that blueprint with them. Now, what happens then is we project our imprint experience onto this person. So obviously they're not the same person that we grew up with. So we blur the lines a little bit and we say, okay, well, near as damn it, you're pretty similar to that person. So I'm going to behave, I only have one script for that person in my experience. So I'm going to use that script with you. And the other person projects onto you and uses the script they have with whoever you remind them of from childhood. And that's where your dynamic starts. So a lot of it is actually not seeing the person for who they really are, but you're responding to who they remind you of from your past. Inevitably, we're going to trigger each other, and your partner is going to show up and ultimately highlight everything that needs healing in you that wasn't great about your childhood. And some relationships you'll get into where they meet all your needs, and you never have to listen to that voice in your head that says you're not good enough, because they tell you that you're good enough all the time, and you never have to feel abandoned because they never leave your side. And those relationships are lovely, they feel great, but often they end up not feeling so great. And then you find that other person that you think, yes, this person's the one I'm most excited about, this person's the most I'm most passionate about. And they will not heal anything for you. They will not tell you that, you're good enough if that's what you need to hear. They will be exactly the mirror to all of your pain. They will come into your life to show you all of the healing that needs doing. And if you're ready for evolution, you will embrace it and say, oh gosh, this is challenging, but yes, you're right, you're holding up as a mirror to all my pain. This is good to know. And if you're not quite ready for that evolution, you will possibly think you're obnoxious and you should be doing nice things so that I don't have to feel these feelings, and if you changed I wouldn't have to, and maybe I should leave you and find somebody who will meet all these needs for me. And that is a choice. So as we go through, you'll be able to make that choice and at least maybe do the evolution that you want to do and see how things shift as a result. But I know that Nick came into my life to hold up a mirror and say, yeah, those other partners that you had, yeah, they told you the things that you needed to hear so that you never had to listen to your own voice telling you those horrible things to yourself. I'm not going to say nice things to you, and the gap you're going to fill with your own inner voice, and you'll have to listen to that until you heal it. And of course, every bone in my body wanted to make him be nice to me, so that I didn't have to listen to my own inner voice, and I wouldn't have got the healing that I now have if he'd done that. So obviously he came into my life and said, no, that's your healing that needs to be done. And I did the exact same thing for him. And then the beautiful thing is that when you are healed, you open that space for them to give you the affirmation that you needed back then. But actually you don't really need it as much anymore. Now it's just nice. So this is a beautiful part of relationships that I really like. So whenever I meet a couple, I'm always thinking, you are literally the perfect people for each other. Even though you're miserable right now, you have everything the other person really wants and needs, but it's on the other side of your healing. And it's so beautiful. So I'm always optimistic about why partners have come together, and that you have so much to learn from each other. And it's always worth doing the work. Even if you think you're going to leave, obviously if you need to leave for your own safety, that's really important. Not everybody's ready to heal or safe to be with. But if you can do this healing work before you leave, you won't just experience this all again with somebody else. So always consider doing the work anyway. And everything that I've just said about blueprints, the way that we trigger each other, the way that we're holding up that mirror, that becomes the dynamic. And that dynamic of the deepest wounds being flung at each other and blamed on each other is the dynamic. And underneath that is what we're really asking each other for. What are we really trying to achieve? And that's what I love to do, is working out what your dynamic is. And that's what I'm going to help you to do on this course. What is your dynamic? What are you really trying to say to each other? What healing do you need to do, but could help each other with along the way? So Richard Schwartz, who wrote You're the One You've Been Looking For, thoroughly recommend that as a read, really explains this internal family systems model. So as I've described before, the sort of these parts of yourself modelled on other people, but also parts of yourself that you feel are unlovable and you kind of want to exile them. And you've got all these protector parts of yourself coming out to, protect you and be defensive or, get attention, whatever they are. And ultimately, he says that we're looking for a redeemer. We're looking for someone who's going to redeem us and love all those broken parts back together and be that person that we wished our parent was when we needed it. And he says that you're the person that's going to give you all of those things, and your partner's going to hold the mirror up to you about what it is that you didn't get and help you heal. I can absolutely say with certainty that I remember feeling like that Nick was going to be that person for me. I was like, oh my God, if someone like him wants me, then it means that everything my dad used to say, everything my mum used to say about me was wrong, and I am enough, and I am lovable, and I am good. And if he loves me, if I can get him to love me, then it proves I'm okay and I'll be healed forever. And then, of course, that was the last thing he was going to do. But he was going to hold a mirror up to my, most painful wounds. And now that I'm on the other side of doing that work, not just our relationship has improved, my whole life improved, because I'm no longer waiting for somebody else to tell me that I'm good enough. So I have him to thank for a lot of things in my life, not just an amazing relationship. So let's talk experience and outcomes. What do you want to achieve on this journey? Where have you come from on this journey already? What have you been through? What's your story? What's your experience? And what do you want next? So some things to write down is, what's your current relationship situation? So pure and simple, in a relationship, not in a relationship, want a relationship, don't want a relationship. What do you hope is different by the end of the course? So what are some of the problems that you'd like to solve? What are some of the feelings that you'd like to release from your life so you don't feel them anymore? Is it just about not having arguments? What is it that you hope will be different? What patterns have you noticed and experienced that you want to resolve? Not everybody can identify their patterns. Obviously, that's something that we will go through on this course so that you'll really understand what is the pattern here. It's not just an argument about socks or the bath mat in the wrong place. It's not just an argument about, not texting me when you're coming home. It's an argument underneath that. What is the pattern? Is it a pattern of you constantly feeling abandoned? Is it a pattern of you constantly feeling blamed? That is, or underappreciated and criticised. What is the actual pattern that you want to resolve? And when you've answered those questions, we're ready to head into the next section.